At 61, Jim Carrey sat down for what he called his final interview. The man who made millions laugh was ready to tell the truth. For decades, fans suspected something dark behind his manic energy. They were right. In 2025, Carrey revealed he'd been on Prozac since the 1980s, battling what he called low-level despair that never left. But that wasn't the shocking part. What he confessed about his father's suicide attempts and his own breaking point will change how you see every movie he ever made. Just weeks ago, in March 2026, Carrey made a surprise appearance at the Academy Awards to present Best Visual Effects. The crowd gasped. He looked older, thinner, but his eyes held a serenity never seen before. When asked backstage about his retirement, he smiled and said, "I'm not hiding anymore, I'm just being." That moment reminded the world, Jim Carrey is still here, still searching, still healing. The boy who learned to disappear. Jim Carrey was born on January 17, 1962, in Newmarket, Ontario. He was the youngest of four, growing up in a cramped home where dreams and bills collided every month. His father, Percy, played saxophone with a jazz band before settling for an accounting job at Titan Wheels in Scarborough, earning just $8,000 a year. His mother, Kathleen, fought illness throughout his childhood. The family name had once been Carr before Percy's ancestors anglicized it after coming to Canada. Inside their modest home, Jim watched his father's quiet disappointment grow. Percy had the heart of a musician trapped behind a desk, and Jim saw early that even hard work didn't guarantee safety. When he turned 8, Jim found comfort in the mirror. He would stand there for hours, twisting his face into shapes that made even his siblings stop and stare. By 10, he was so confident that he mailed a letter to Carol Burnett, telling her he was already a master of impressions. He got a polite form letter back. He taped it to his wall like a promise. At school, he couldn't help himself. He turned every class into a show, morphing into teachers and movie stars until the principal sent him out again and again. Kids called him Rubber Face. For a boy living in constant financial strain, those laughs were gold. The collapse living in a van. Then everything collapsed in 1975 when Titan Wheels shut down without warning. Percy was 51 and suddenly unemployed. He sent out 73 applications to accounting firms across Ontario and got nothing but rejections. The savings dried up fast, and Kathleen's medical bills ate whatever was left. Percy finally took a janitor job for $4 an hour, cleaning toilets in the same kind of factory he'd once worked for as an accountant. Jim was 13, watching the man he admired most mop floors for men who used to shake his hand. The humiliation cut deep. Within months, they lost their home. From 1975 to 1977, the Carreys lived in a yellow Volkswagen camper van parked near Lake Ontario. Percy and Kathleen slept inside, while Jim and his brother John pitched a tent beside it through freezing Canadian nights. They woke up with frost on their sleeping bags and washed up in gas station sinks before school. Sometimes Jim scavenged expired sandwiches from dumpsters and warmed them over the van's stove. Together, the family worked the night shift at a local factory, earning $32 for 8 hours of cleaning. Jim went to Aldershot High School during the day, half asleep, his clothes unwashed, his mind numb. By 15, his mother's illness had worsened so much, she couldn't walk on her own. Jim started missing classes, and by 16 he dropped out to work full-time beside his father, earning $4.25 an hour. He cleaned floors all night, came home at dawn, lifted his mother from bed, washed her, made her food, and sat by her side cracking jokes to make her laugh. Those jokes were how he stayed sane. Kathleen called him her little sunshine, but inside he was terrified. The morning that changed everything. In 1982, Jim found his father unconscious in the bathroom. Percy had swallowed a bottle of pills. Jim was 20, screaming into the phone for help as paramedics rushed him to Joseph Brant Hospital. They saved him by minutes. Later, Percy admitted he had tried twice before during the years they'd lived in the van. Jim carried that shock for the rest of his life, fearing that same darkness lived in him. It became the reason he worked so hard, the reason he could never stop. In a newly surfaced interview from 2025, Carrey told podcaster Rick Rubin, "I spent 40 years running from that bathroom floor. Every laugh I chased was me trying to outrun the image of my father with a bottle in his hand." The interview, released in January 2026, has been viewed over 50 million times. First steps on stage? When he was 15, Percy had driven him to Toronto's Yuck Yucks comedy club for his first real show. His mother had picked out a bright polyester leisure suit, convinced that's what comedians wore on TV. The act bombed. People barely clapped. But Percy, even in all his disappointment, drove him home with quiet pride. Jim learned then that failing on stage wasn't death. It was training. On his 16th birthday, he quit school completely. The family was still broke, and everyone worked factory or janitor shifts to survive. Jim did 12-hour nights, sleeping in the van between shifts, dreaming of lights and applause. He started sneaking in comedy practice on breaks, mimicking Don Adams and W.C. Fields to keep his mind alive. The family began to fall apart under the weight of poverty. His siblings scattered. His father sank deeper into depression, and his mother's painkiller use became an addiction. Jim later said, "If you're high on painkillers, that's abandonment." He would sit at the dinner table listening to her say things like, "My brain is deteriorating at an incredible rate," or "I could go at any time." Those words carved themselves into him. Rejection after rejection. At 17, he finally made $20 for a 20-minute set at a club called The Hoff. It wasn't much. That rejection burned for years. But it also pushed him to stop copying others and start inventing his own characters. He tried out for SNL 3 separate times, 1980, 1983, and 1986, and was rejected every single time. His final audition failed after a Robin Williams impression fell flat. Instead of quitting, he reinvented himself. He began developing strange, exaggerated characters that no one else would dare attempt. One of them was Fire Marshal Bill, the wild man who would later define his breakout years. In Living Color and the First Cracks. In 1990, Jim Carrey was 28 years old when he joined In Living Color, a Fox sketch show that didn't just push boundaries, it erased them. From the moment he walked on stage, his energy didn't match anyone else's. He created more than 120 sketches over 5 seasons. Fire Marshal Bill blew up fast, melted face, manic stare, and the wild catchphrase, "You can call me Bill." He made people laugh and squirm at the same time. Behind the scenes, he was going too hard. To play characters like Vera DeMilo, a grotesque female bodybuilder, Carrey changed his weight constantly, gaining or losing 20 pounds in a week. He used his body like a prop. He'd slap himself, bend in painful ways, smash into furniture just to get a laugh. During one sketch in 1992, he twisted his ankle dancing and had to shoot the rest of the week in pain. To keep going, he started relying on Adderall. It helped him stay awake through brutal 80-hour weeks, but it was also pulling him apart inside. The 1994 explosion and the breakdown. In 1994, Ace Ventura: Pet Detective dropped. Nobody expected a low-budget, loudmouth pet detective to change comedy forever. The movie cost $15 million. It made $15 million. It made $72 million in the US alone. Carrey improvised almost 40% of his lines. "Alrighty then," became a national catchphrase. Studios went from laughing at him to throwing contracts on his desk. But the cost was growing. For Ace Ventura, he made $350,000. After release, his fee jumped to $50,000. After release, his fee jumped to $7 million for Dumb and Dumber, then $20 million for The Cable Guy. But the more he made, the more he crumbled. During the promo tour for Dumb and Dumber, he had a nervous breakdown. He hallucinated. He confessed to using cocaine to stay awake. He called himself a manic, depressive clown. He felt like he was wearing a mask. Not the green one, a different kind. The kind where you pretend to be happy while you fall apart inside. In 2025, during a rare podcast appearance, Carrey revealed that he nearly checked himself into a psychiatric hospital in early 1995. "I was sitting in my living room at 3 a.m., convinced the walls were breathing," he said. "I called my manager and said, 'I think I need to be locked up.' He talked me down. But I should have gone." The Truman Show: Art Imitating Life. When Jim Carrey filmed The Boat Escape in The Truman Show, the pressure was real. Director Peter Weir wasn't satisfied until Carrey reached the edge of his own breaking point. That one stormy sequence alone took 150 takes. The crew built an artificial ocean with a storm system that could pass for the real thing. Water slammed into Carrey from all sides while he clung to a boat. At one point, he almost drowned. Crew members had to jump in and save him. Yet, when they finally captured the moment Truman touches the wall and exits the fake world, it took only one take. That shot became one of the most memorable in movie history. The film cost $60 million and earned $60 million and earned $264 million worldwide. Carrey's performance was so powerful that no one laughed. They just watched. For weeks, Carrey refused to leave the set. He wanted to feel what it meant to be completely alone, cut off from the world like Truman. He didn't call his family. He barely spoke to anyone outside the scenes. That isolation made the emotional scenes hit harder, but it also caused tension. Carrey won the Golden Globe for Best Actor. But by the time the trophy was in his hand, things behind the scenes were already broken. Catriona White and the lawsuit that haunts him. In 2015, tragedy hit. Catriona White, an Irish makeup artist and Carrey's on and off partner, died from a drug overdose. She left a note blaming him for providing the pills. Her estate sued, claiming Carrey gave her STDs and painkillers and broke up with her when she was most fragile. Investigators found missing pill bottles and texts suggesting he knew what was coming. His team said it was extortion. The case was dismissed in 2018, but the stains never washed away. In a 2026 documentary titled The Mask Behind the Mask, Carrey spoke about White for the first time in years. "I failed her," he said quietly. "I was so lost in my own pain that I couldn't see hers. That's the real regret. That's the one that doesn't leave." Finding Peace: The Art and the Surrender. By 2017, Carrey stunned everyone with a viral interview at Fashion Week, saying, "There is no me." He wasn't trying to be clever. He meant it. He had studied Eckhart Tolle, meditated for years, and now felt like he wasn't a person anymore. Just part of everything. He said peace didn't come from personality or fame. It came from surrender. That same year, he started painting hundreds of canvases inspired by what he called Christ consciousness. At Homeboy Industries in 2015, he told former inmates that forgiveness is what opens heaven's gates. He said, "Jesus suffered not just physically, but emotionally, and still forgave. That's where my art comes from." In 2024, he returned for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, pocketing $30 million. The production printed his script in real 24-karat gold ink just to lure him in. He laughed about needing money, saying, "I bought a lot of stuff." But, he also admitted, "The magic brought me back. I never truly left." The final confession. By 2025, Jim Carrey's movies had made over $1 billion. He won 2 Golden Globes, but never an Oscar. He once said, "Everyone should get rich and famous just to learn that it doesn't fix anything." His biggest year was still 1994, Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber all in one stretch. But his soul lived somewhere else. In that final 2025 interview, he was asked what he wanted his legacy to be. He paused for a long time. Then he said, "I want people to know that the guy who made them laugh was crying most of the time. Not for sympathy, just for truth. Because if I've learned anything, it's that the only thing harder than feeling everything is feeling nothing." Jim Carrey stopped running from that bathroom floor. He turned around, faced it, and finally sat down. The laughter didn't stop. But neither did the honesty, and that, perhaps, is his greatest performance of all.